normally I would have done.
Uh-huh, I think I know what you're talking about.
You absolutely know what it was.
Because almost as soon as I said it, I'm like, oh, that's a Patrick line. Whoops.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep bringing comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Man, it feels like I've been podcasting all week.
Why?
Well, there was an extra episode of Contest of Challengers that went up this week.
Oh, did it? Okay.
The Elliot Rahal interview.
Neat.
So that was recorded last week, but it took a little extra time to edit because I'm a lot more thorough when we have a guest.
Sure.
I want to make sure I present them in as good of a light as possible. I don't really care how we come across.
No. No.
There's not a whole lot of... I mean, there's obviously editing, but just for...
We don't have a lot of vanity when it comes to this podcast.
No.
For us.
I honestly, what I mainly take out are the long pauses and the ums and ahs.
Sure, that's fair.
Which I acknowledge, and I've said this before, most podcasts I listen to don't do that. And if one of us coughs, I like to try to take that out.
Sure.
Obviously, that stays in on the Patreon exclusive unedited feeds that people get.
The premium episodes.
That's right. That's right. And to make up for it with the Elliot Rahal interview, since, as you know, I don't like to put up unedited versions when we have guests.
Sure.
I put that one up in Patreon a full day before I put it up.
How considerate.
For everybody else. So they get a little something extra. A little something extra.
Nice.
Hey, your good friend Brett Helt has a podcast now.
Oh, that's cool. What's it about?
Neil Gaiman and Sandman.
Okay.
He and a friend do an issue of the comic per episode.
That's cool. That's a good way to do it.
And they're doing it a month in between, like a month at a time, as the way the books came out.
So they're going to do it for a few years?
Maybe.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe.
That's cool. They could be done in 75 weeks if they did one issue a week.
I said your friend, but obviously he's our friend and the store's friend, but didn't you go to school with him?
I did, yes, that's correct.
That's why I emphasize it that way.
Okay.
He tagged me in a post as the person that got him into Sandman.
Oh, that's very nice of him.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out that he, in fact, got into Books of Magic first, and then wanted to try Sandman, and since it was pre-graphic novels, really, I started him with some of the standalone issues.
Oh, okay, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at me, helping people 29 years later, or whatever that was. But this is today. And this is a glimpse into the week that we had at Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, because this is...
Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network here in Chicago.
And we're trying to get this done before we have to go to Riot Fest all weekend, and... Wait, no, that's not a thing we're doing.
Yeah, I was definitely not planning on going to Riot Fest. I'm not even 100% sure what the roster looks like this year.
It's just that this is the time of year we would reminisce about the Riot Fests that we used to be able to hear.
When it was closer to the recording studio.
Yes.
Now it is farther away.
And I always make a Slayer reference.
Away? Farther away. One of the two.
Both. I make a Slayer reference and you make a...
Weezer Blue Album reference.
Yep. So consider those checked off. Can I write down Riot Fest references?
Scribble,
okay,
scribble, scribble.
Do that,
capitalize the T's.
So I think I want to start this episode with... Well, it's already started, obviously, but nonetheless. I think the next thing I'm going to bring up on this episode...
Here's the thing I'm about to say.
One of my favorite interactions in the store. And by interactions, I mean I was a witness. I mean, I was there for it. I guess I was involved, only I didn't say anything. But this is an interaction you had with someone who was in the store.
Uh-oh.
And this is from my vantage point. No, I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
I'm afraid this is going to make me look bad, but let's hear it.
I don't think it will.
Okay.
I mean, it won't make you look as professional as you like to, but it gets a really good point across.
Okay.
And it's the kind of thing that normally I would have done.
I think I know what you're talking about.
You absolutely know what it was.
Because almost as soon as I said it, I'm like, oh, that's a Patrick line. Whoops.
There was
His words coming out of my mouth.
what is the word should I use? A patron? A
customer.
No, but what we were trying to not use customer, right? Wasn't that a thing from this week? From something else you had?
Oh, yeah. No, customer's fine.
A connoisseur, a supporter,
Customer's
a benefactor.
That's beyond an in-joke.
Okay.
Customer. We'll just say customer.
A customer was in, came up to the counter, exasperated, with a stack of Sea of Stars comics in his hand.
Which I thought he was buying them. I'm like, man, did this thing take off online or something? Because people in store don't seem to care about that series at all.
And I don't remember exactly what he said. Basically, he was saying, how can they do this? Because there was some form of, I guess, damage that he saw.
That to everybody else, for books that we've had for anywhere between 1 week and 3 months, was basically imperceptible.
And I say I guess, because after he left, I went back and examined them and said, I don't see it.
Yeah, to him it was so egregious. And this is a guy that's not a first-time customer. This is a guy who's been in for a while. He's never, discussed condition as being relevant to his purchases. He'll get bags and boards sometimes, or he'll try and take care of his books, but it was never a situation where, he's got, a jeweler's loop or something, looking at the microscopic imperfections of every cover to find the best one. He was just a guy who would normally shop around and ask questions about the industry or about different comics. He seemed like he was a little bit more interested in, the business of comics, how it all works and how books come out and that kind of thing. And I'm always happy to talk about that. Obviously, we do this podcast.
Sure.
So it was a little surprising to me that this guy would not only, be up in arms about the condition of a book, but also in a way that seemed irrelevant to everybody else. It's the sort of, the damage he was talking about was a basic, they printed tens of thousands of copies of this, and they are not all perfect. And it's well, no, they're not. Just printing thousands of copies of a paper comic book, they're not going to be 10.0 mint. And then when you take them off the conveyor belt and you box them up and you send them to distributors, and the distributors crack those cases open and unpack them and separate them out into individual boxes that are then sealed up and sent to individual stores who unpack them and put them on the shelves.
I mean, to be fair, you left at a point. I lick every comic that we get in.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's relevant. You lick most comics at most stores.
Yeah, so that's how I engage with the medium.
If you've bought a comic book in North America in the last 10 years, Patrick's probably licked it.
Probably.
Yeah, I feel like we talk about that a lot. But
so,
in this instance, it was something where it's just not only could we not see the damage, but what he was referring to is just this is just a physical object in the physical world, man. This isn't huge creases down the cover or rips and tears. It was just oh, the corner has a little bit of paper fluff coming out of it. Well, yeah, they print it on kind of terrible paper and they fold it and they staple it, and this is what it looks like.
I mean, if anybody would ever see the piles as they come out of the boxes, as they're stacked up, when you have, let's say, 200 copies of House of X in front of you lined up in piles, and you could see all of the spines simultaneously, I'll tell you, they're not all perfect.
Yeah.
There are a lot that have maybe an extra fold, or not an extra fold, but a deeper fold in the spine, or, as that, specifically what you said, that little bit of fluff in the corner of the spine happens all the time.
Yeah, it's basically why comics are generally considered off the rack to be a 9.4 grade in best condition as opposed to a 10.0. 10.0 is there's literally no imperfection whatsoever anywhere to be found. That's not how things work. There's always, Poe Buddy's Nerfect. Same thing goes for comic books. Things are going to be slightly imperfect because we live in an imperfect world.
And there's plenty of times where we'll have a weird print run of a book, a roller needed to be changed, and there's a line that goes through a lot of the books that we get, which is exclusive to books printed from that one section of the print run. Fine. That could be a thing that ours are not damaged, but different, or a little more worn.
Yeah.
We not meticulously, we're not a store that separates out by condition. These are the perfect books, so we can charge more.
Right.
These are the regular shelf books, and these are beat up. No, we go through the books, and we report our damages every single week. Mm-hmm. And we are not incredibly harsh.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not going through this thing looking for reasons to send them back. We're more just looking for reasons why it's is there any reason why someone wouldn't buy this? And most times, again, slight imperfections, it's just, you don't like it, take it up with reality. I don't know what to tell you.
So when he comes up to the shelf, to the counter. At first, it was unclear if he was blaming us.
I didn't think so.
He was saying, like, how can you put these out there? How can these be for sale?
I thought he was referring to it from Image as a publisher. How could they get away with this sort of thing?
Okay.
But anyway, so all the stuff we just said, that's all stuff we eventually explained to him. What I said first was, and you'll correct me on this if I'm getting the phrasing wrong.
Well, first, pose the question. He asked the question, and you answered.
How
can you sell these like this?
And my answer was, because the story's still okay on the inside?
Because the story is still inside.
Yeah.
And you said it...
And, well, because I
kind of as a question. And again, this was from my point of view.
I did, yeah.
So this guy's like, well, how can you sell these?
I was a little snide about it.
Because the story's still inside?
Yeah, because the story's still okay
and
inside?
in my head, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because again, these are books that were not like... They weren't on fire. They hadn't
Nobody
fallen
wiped
into
their
a sewer.
butt with them or anything.
Yeah, they were...
There were no egregious or even noticeable issues.
They were totally fine. And the idea of, like, well, you can't sell these is like, most people just want to read them. Like,
and look, there are times where we get a book that's beat to hell, but it's going to take a week or 2 weeks to replace it, so we'll put it on the shelf. And if somebody doesn't want to buy it because it's beat up, they don't have to buy it.
Sure, and there's been instances where we've had subscription-only books or things that were special orders that come in, and they don't come in great shape, and we will give people the option of, like, look, you can get this now if you want to read the story. A replacement's going to take a couple weeks to come in. You can wait for that one if you prefer. 99 times out of 100, people go, I'll just take the ones here now. I just want to read it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, occasionally,
yeah.
someone will say, well, I'll wait.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I get it.
Sure, and sometimes there are books that are just too... Like, there's ones that we've gotten where it's packed so badly that the cover is coming off the interior. Like, it's torn off of the staples. And that, I'm not even going to give someone the option. It's like, this book is destroyed. It should not have even been shipped to us in this condition. It's going back to the publisher to get a refund. I'm not even going to offer it to someone. But, again, if it's just a thing where, like, oh, the cover's slightly bent, or it's got a few more dings in the spine than we would normally want for the shelf, I'll give people the option. And again, mostly they take it because they just want to read the comic. People who are that fastidious, I'm going to be polite and say, about the condition of their books is something that we don't feel like we have to bend over backwards to support. If the book's in great condition and you want to buy it, great. If you don't think it's in great condition, we've had people who have said, like, can you order me a different one because I don't like the condition for this one? And we tell them the truth, which is, if we order you another one, it's probably going to come in the same condition or worse.
Yeah, especially when it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Like if we're getting one to replace it.
Yeah.
How many times, Dal, have we gotten a special order replacement that comes in worse than the first one?
Reordered comics from Diamond, I'm going to say as a rule, come in generally lower conditions than the ones that we get on our weekly shipments. I don't know why. I know they come from different distribution hubs. Our direct ship reorders come from Olive Branch, Missouri, as opposed to Plattsburgh. But without fail, if we're getting a few, 15 or 20 single-issue comics on a Wednesday as a restock from Olive Branch, that's where most of our damaged comics come from. Like, on a regular week, we might have 4 or 5 comics, maybe, that are damaged. On a bad week, 4 or 5 comics that we have to tell Diamond, on a Tuesday with our regular ship order from Plattsburgh, these are unsellable. These are in bad condition. We can't put these on the shelf. I would say, on average, 25 to 30% of the comics that we get from Olive Branch on a reorder are kind of in the realm of, like, I could probably say these are damaged, but they're just going to come in worse, so I guess I'll put them on the shelf anyway and see what happens.
And when somebody says, hey, I don't like the condition of this one, can you get me another one? Honestly, I'll judge it. Mm-hmm. And if I think it's okay, I won't do it.
Yeah, because
there's
the one
no
that
guarantee
we have,
it's going to get.
Yeah,
and then we're stuck with that one.
Yeah, well, and the one that we have, I'd rather sell that one now than get another one that I have to get for someone, especially for a book I'm not going to restock, that may or may not come in better condition, that they may say, no, I don't want this one either, and I don't want to play that game. Like, no, I don't need a second copy of this book. I don't.
But there's judgment calls we have to make every week. For example, a restocked copy of a Hellboy trade that was just Tales. It wasn't the smaller one. It wasn't like a sequential one. Anyway, a Hellboy trade we got this week. Mm-hmm. The cover was not the best, but not terrible.
Sure.
And I thought, it'll have to do.
Yeah, again, it's just the physical world. These things do not come in pristine, freshly warm off the printer condition. Like, they get packed and repacked any number of times before they reach the stores. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately one of the most frustrating things about comics as a industry is the kind of reverence for condition, the way that it has to be in great condition, not just readable, great condition for a lot of collectors, which is another reason why we kind of don't want to focus on the collecting side of the industry.
Yeah, but Dal, you realize a damaged cover ruins the story.
Exactly. I mean, how am I supposed to appreciate it when I know it's less valuable now? Every time Captain America says that he's going to punch out Red Skull, I'm going to be thinking, but you're worth less to me now.
Yeah. I mean, in the studio that we're in right now to record, we're surrounded by graphic novels on shelves. Mm-hmm. How many front covers can you see?
0.
If any at all. Okay, you can see the Moon Knight one.
Sure, that's because I don't have a lot on that shelf.
Yeah. And that's my point. Like, okay, maybe, like, let's say even the corner of the cover is folded a little bit on a graphic novel, on a trade paperback collection. You're not going to see that on the shelf.
No, and for a lot of people, they get graphic novels because they can get beat up. Even people who don't care so much about condition, are reluctant to do things like take single-issue comics on a trip to work, whatever, when they need something to read, because there's a good chance that single-issue comic, especially if it's a Marvel or an Image comic, it's going to get destroyed. It's so not built to last anymore with the cover stock and the paper stock and everything else. But a graphic novel, not only is it a little bit more resilient because of the coating on the cover, it might be a hardcover, or just the thickness of the spine. But if it does get beat up, who cares? It's never going to go up in value. If it gets completely obliterated, you just buy another one for the same price.
Then
if
it
you
won't
want
be
to.
a first print.
Exactly. Another thing that doesn't matter about graphic novels.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is,
I was kind of an asshole to
again,
somebody.
it's not like us. It's not for us to tell you how to engage with the comics you buy. And you spent a lot of time explaining the whole system to this gentleman.
I did not want to leave it at my snide remark. That's not. I didn't mean to do that.
This is a fundamental difference between you and I.
It slipped out.
Your comment was harmless.
I know, but it was impolite at the very least, and it was something where I should have phrased it better, or should have been more informative. But it hit me kind of.
I think you were more than informative.
Well,
eventually,
that's the thing. Eventually, like, I should have led with that, not some stupid snide remark that I left hanging because it felt good to say it. Like, I usually try and keep a cooler head for that kind of thing. I don't want to be that sort of asshole retailer that zings somebody or burns them or whatever. Like, I don't want to do that. We may disagree, he and I, on the necessity of high grades or conditions on books. And we definitely disagreed on whether or not those Sea of Stars were, unsellable or not. But he's not trying to be an asshole. And I try and keep that in mind when people are asking questions that I find difficult or even frustrating. Like, he didn't mean it in a, you guys are ripping me off. What is wrong with the industry? Why haven't you fixed this kind of way? And I shouldn't have answered it like he was saying it that way.
Honestly, I still felt that there was a little bit of him blaming us in what he was saying.
Okay.
And it's a matter of intent. I don't know, obviously, what it was. You did not hear it that way.
No.
But also, I wasn't the one interacting with him. So,
Sure.
Ultimately, I think it's fine.
I mean, I'm not losing sleep over it. Don't get me wrong. This is not something where it's going to haunt me for the rest of my days. There are way more things that are going to haunt me than that. But this was something where it's just like, as soon as I said it, I'm like, you shouldn't have said it that way, in that tone of voice, with those words. That was incorrect. But learning experience. I don't know.
Either way,
yeah,
it was a good line.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, at least. That's the hidden benefit. At least Patrick was entertained.
Yep. Keep that in mind, everybody,
Yep.
when you're shopping.
Job
with
one.
us. Entertain me. Hey, Dad, we've got a couple of questions from listeners and patrons. Mm-hmm. And seeing as how I can't access my phone when we record, you have them all. Well, you have one question and you have one answer. Actually, you have both questions.
Okay. Yeah, I have, I think, two questions, I think. The first is a request from Gene Kelly. Could you guys talk about the end of the ComiXology Challenger store as a topic? I was using it as of a few weeks ago. What Gene's referring to is that long ago when ComiXology first started doing digital comics, one of the things they offered retail shops like Challengers is the ability to be an affiliate storefront for ComiXology, which means we would have a Challengers branded ComiXology digital storefront where ComiXology would kick us back a very small percentage of digital sales made through that portal. Specifically, there were people we know who are Challengers customers and Challengers customers who no longer live anywhere near Challengers who wanted to still find some way to support the store, and they wanted digital comics, and they thought, I'll buy the digital comics through the Challenger storefront. ComiXology has abandoned that concept.
They've abandoned most of the things that they started with.
Yes.
Pullbox.
Yeah, but this is something that, honestly, it never made us a bunch of money, and frankly, we never really saw the need to kind of put a lot of effort into it, because, frankly, the small percentage of money we made from digital comics on ComiXology, we'd rather make that on a much higher percentage on the physical comics that we sell on our storefront.
Sure, it's just that with people that supported us that way who'd moved away to other states now don't have that option.
Yeah, the other thing is that in general, and this is something that a lot of physical storefronts realized in the first few years of the kind of digital boom, it's not great for us as a retail storefront to be enticing more and more people into ComiXology's ecosystem. Certainly ComiXology, as noted here, an Amazon company, does not need our help. They are not crying because Challengers is not going to be supporting them or boosting their signal. ComiXology is much, 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 much larger than Challengers. And people will find their way to ComiXology without our help.
Yes, but also we weren't actively, as you said, promoting it or...
Right.
There weren't links. At one point, there were links on our website, but there haven't been for years.
We pretty much got rid of them because we stopped kind of wanting to support it and caring about it. If people wanted to feel a little better about their digital sales by going through our portal and kicking us back a few pennies, that's totally fine.
And I'll be honest, I appreciated it. I like that they still went the extra effort of, one extra place they had to go to get their books.
Yeah. But basically, as of August 27th, 2019... the ComiXology retailer digital storefronts are completely done. You just buy your stuff through ComiXology now.
What ComiXology did was they sent us an email, back in early June, saying, hey, it's going away. But it was one of these, after much consideration, we're not doing this anymore. We're not telling you why. We're not telling you that any of the reasoning behind this or what's replacing it. We just don't want to do it anymore. And from now on, that link people use will just go back to your website where you can then explain to people why it's not working.
Which we had to do because somebody clicked on that and they were like, what happened to your storefront? We had to go, oh, that's done.
Right, but they meant put on your website the reason why it doesn't work.
Right, which we're not going to do.
No.
I don't care enough. People can figure it out or they can email us or they can just go to ComiXology. I don't really feel like it. I have to explain it. I don't fault ComiXology for doing it, certainly. They don't... If we were doing huge business, I'd maybe feel differently, but for what we were making, they don't have to tell us anything. They could just as easily do what they did and say, you know what, in a couple months it's going away. You'll get a check in October for the last of it. And it's like, that's fine. I don't have what I think is an adversarial relationship with ComiXology. I've talked to some of those folks that have worked there. I've worked with them on other things in the past.
You've given them beer?
I have. I've let them fill their pockets with beer. I've worked with them as a retailer. It's two different industries as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know it's all comics, but what they're doing with digital and what we're doing with print, I don't think it's really the same thing. I don't look at them as competition any more than I do
any webcomic site like Webtoons or...
Yeah, like someone's digital comic or, I don't look at that as competition any more than I do Marvel movies or, the Marvel theme park expansions at Walt Disney. It's all stuff. It's all, I don't know. The existential threat of digital, I think, is a very 2013 conversation to be having. And I don't think that's there anymore. Even publishers like Jim Lee are saying, yeah, we thought this had endless growth and it's kind of plateaued and no one really knows why or what that audience wants or how to grow it. Which, I mean, some of that is just the standard DC thing of they could say that about any of their audiences. They don't understand why anything sells or how to grow it or how to reach those audiences. So that's maybe less about digital as an ecosystem and more about DC as a publisher. But in general, I think you're seeing that from a lot of different publishers, is digital exists and it makes a certain amount of money, but that money is much more quantifiable now. It's much more difficult to see it as, it's going to put stores out of business. I mean, maybe eventually, maybe there's some magic bullet streaming service style thing that's going to take every single print customer and say, well, I'd be an idiot not to do the digital whatever. But no one has yet. There's digital customers and there's print customers, and it seems like there's kind of that split. So I don't feel like I have to be angry at or fight with Amazon, specifically ComiXology. Amazon is a vendor, is a
whole different story.
As a marketplace, completely different thing.
Not a thing we're going to talk about now, because it'll just make us both angry.
Yeah, but
wait, us angry at this podcast? Come on.
They're digital comics. It's fine. I'm not mad about it. It's totally fine. They can do what they want.
I'll be perfectly honest. Yeah. They lasted far longer with the digital storefronts than I ever thought they would.
Sure.
Because I want to say that we signed up in 2015.
Yeah, I think before they were an Amazon company for sure.
Yeah, well, we had signed up, and then there was, when they changed to Amazon, there was a whole batch of paperwork that had to be resubmitted, and something of ours got lost in the shuffle. So for several months, if not a year, when it was Amazon, there was literally no monetary benefit for us. We were not getting anything that anybody who bought from our site paid for. We were not getting anything from that because of paperwork. And that slowly got worked out, and then it did, finally. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, that is a thing of the past. Yeah. And there's no reason for us to ever had owned challengersdigital.com. And it's gone now, but it had been gone for a while, so it's not even that big of a deal. Next question. This is in conjunction with the weekly Instagram posts that Dal puts up of a few panels of each week's House of X or Powers of 10. Mm-hmm. And this started a discussion this week.
Okay. Ryan Voss, on the Instagram post for Powers of 10 number 4, asked this question: is this the biggest retail hit for comic shops from the Big Two since Infinite Crisis or Civil War? Where in the context of Big Two retail boons do these two miniseries rank? I feel like we answered a similar question a while back about big hit series and which ones are successful and not, and kind of the retail side of it, which is one answer, and the readership side, which is another end. So, yeah, I mean, to the first part of the question, is this the biggest hit since Infinite Crisis or Civil War?
The difference between the questions was, Michael Romanenko's question was which major...
like event.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, again, I mean, even in this, Ryan is comparing Hawks and Pox to Infinite Crisis, which was an event, Civil War, which was an event. So I think it's fair for a lot of people to look at this not as two separate 6-issue miniseries so much as one 12-part event series, because it's really that.
Yeah.
It's very much that. And that's how some of it is working as well as it is, both on a retail side and a content side. It's because of the event nature of it. Yeah, I certainly, it's hard for me to think of anything that's been this successful in the last, there was, I'm sure, something between, like, the 2004 stuff. Was 2000? No, 2000 and...
2005 was Civil War.
Yeah. 5 and 6, I think, is maybe where I'm thinking of it.
Well, here is where it's harder for us to
in Naperville.
Decide, because once we opened up, from 2008 forward, we can't tell what was a big hit versus us just growing as a store.
Yeah.
Now, if we look back over the history of the retail marketplace, and if we think of this question as what got the most people excited, I think, again, this was something we covered under Michael Romanenko's question, but literally an event that got more people into the store than had been before would have been Joss Whedon.
Sure. I guess if we're looking at 04-05 up to the present, this is the most sustained I think I've ever seen it. Because even stuff that we were having that was events...
Sustained, and we're 8 weeks in.
Well, I mean, if you just look at it, 8 weeks, 8 issues, like...
Yeah. That's true.
Nothing lasts that long. Like, I was going to say, Black Panther #1. By issue 3, we were selling like a third of what we were selling for issue 1. It dropped so fast. But this, I mean, it went up from one, and it stayed there, which is insane. That is so far outside of the norm. Yeah, I mean, my memory's just bad in general. So it's, as far as bringing people in and getting them to sign up for stuff and keeping them in the subscription service, I can't think of anything like it. Because even stuff like Infinite Crisis, that was more people who were shopping at the store were just getting those books. But I don't recall it bringing in new people to the store I was working at. We didn't see people coming in off the street saying, what is this OMAC project? I got to know more about it. You know?
Yeah.
It was just people were buying more DC books than Marvel maybe a little bit at that point, at least for some of those series. And things that were maybe would have been considered a riskier launch a few years ago, like Checkmate, were launching real big. Again, didn't stay there, but they were launching real big. This, I mean, the time will tell. Like you said, it's only 8 weeks, so it's hard to say, you know, how much this is going to keep going. We've talked before about the question mark of all the Dawn of X books and kind of, is that going to be something that people keep going with, or when they hit Powers of 10-6, are they done? Like, will they feel like the story is finished and they're leaving?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see, because we're copying everybody over to X-Men.
Mm-hmm. Which comes out the next week, which is so smart.
I think that'll be on us after Power 6 to tell everybody, hey, don't forget, X-Men #1 is next week.
Yeah.
Just to remind them that there's still a reason to come back the next week. But we'll see how many people actually jump off. Mm-hmm. And it's been a steady 2 weeks of no new club members for House or Powers.
Sure.
Which, I mean, I didn't think it was going to go up all the time.
Yeah, I'm not even so concerned about the jumping off so much as it just kind of slowing down with people. Like, once X-Men is coming out every 3 weeks or whatever, is that going to change people's habits to coming in every 3 weeks now?
Yeah.
Instead of every week?
Yep.
And the advantage of people coming in every week, we haven't seen it a ton, but it offers us more opportunities to turn them on to other books. They come in every 3 weeks, that's 2 weeks where we didn't get a chance to pitch them on a new comic, where we didn't have them browsing the store or whatever. Like, that could be a problem.
This week was the slowest of the last couple of weeks, mm-hmm. and the least, the lowest customer count for a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. But also, the previous 2 Wednesdays were choking on the amount of product they had coming out.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, you didn't close out Wednesday. I did. Not. A lot of it, at least the kind of shift in the week, you can completely put it at the feet of nothing big from DC came out. No one cared. DC did about 44% of what Marvel did for the week, or for Wednesday. Which, DC's getting clobbered by Marvel every week anyway, but this was one where it's like, that's the difference. If you bring DC up to where it was last Wednesday, we basically did almost the same as we did last week.
Okay. But Marvel has 4 to 6 new #1s every week, and DC has 1 or 2 #1s a month.
Well, it's not even that so much as just the other stuff is selling better. Like, Marvel's going to win almost every week for the next few weeks anyway, because they've got House of 10 and Powers of X.
House of 10, Powers of X. Yep. Good books, like them both.
They got Hawks and Pox coming out, and those sell basically the same amount every week, and that's X amount of money that you're then adding on top of that, you're adding everything else for the week. So there's a baseline, a floor that Marvel is at that is much higher on a Wednesday than DC is going to be. Because DC doesn't have it reliable, every week there's this book that sells this amount. And, you know, in the previous week, we had Doomsday Clock, which sells a bunch. I'm sure there was other books that came out from DC.
Batman, Superman.
And this week there just really wasn't anything. At least nothing that was getting people that excited. Batman came out, but almost every other DC book sells garbage.
Also, Batman is not I have to get it first week book.
No, unless Butler dies.
Yeah.
Which, boy, you don't kill a Butler in one issue and suddenly people don't need it as much. So strange.
So weird.
So weird to me.
What is also weird to me is this upcoming week, Image only has 4 comics coming out. Mm-hmm. Of those 4 comics, 3 of them, for us, are club only. And the 1 comic we'll have for the shelf will have maybe like 2 copies on the shelf.
Yeah, doesn't sell that great.
It is such a weird week. But this last week for Image was pretty huge. And then obviously the week before with all the spawns.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was the other thing last week was the other publisher category is much higher because people were buying $8 copies of Spawn.
Yeah.
And multiples of it. But yeah, so some of it, the week was down because last week was abnormally, insanely huge in a way that we would kind of prefer it not be that huge every week because that's unsustainable for most people's pocketbooks. But also, again, it's just DC is in a point right now, and this, they're always in this point, and I don't want to just lay it at the feet of the publishers, but oh my God, like every few months we're doing this thing of like, why can't DC seem to put a hit together? And it's like,
whoa. Did you read Gotham City Monsters?
More people bought that than I thought they were going to. I'll say that. I mean, in that it was like 6 instead of 0. But it was still, I mean, like, I wasn't expecting 6 people to be in for that. Yeah, I don't want to do the thing we always do, but I'm about to do it. Marvel has this X-Men thing that is firing on all cylinders. People are super excited about not only the books that are coming out each week, but everything that's coming down the line. They're enjoying the comics they're reading so much that they're like, I gotta get more of these when they come out. I gotta have more of this in my life. That's insane to me, and that's so great to see. Meanwhile, DC's got this Year of the Villain thing that may as well not even exist. Nobody cares about it. It's not adding on any additional sales to anything. As a concept, people seem like they're completely ignoring it. And DC went all in on this. This is like a what feels like a 6-month project for them. And it could not be more irrelevant to the average shopper, including the average DC shopper, who should be the one most on the hook for this. They don't care. The one-shots we've been getting, and we've been ordering low numbers and not selling out.
No.
The Black Mask one, which I actually thought was pretty good. I like that creative team a lot. Cully Hamner and Tom Taylor, yes please. Didn't really click with people. The Riddler one doesn't seem like it's going that great. Our pre-orders for most of the subsequent ones, there's only 2 or 3 people who are like, give me all of those. The acetate covers, we had to lock our numbers in, and no one was asking for those.
No, this is, even with things like Absolute Carnage, we have people saying, I want all of them. Year of the Villain, we didn't have anybody who asked for everything.
As a concept, it just seems like no one cares about it. And that's, even the worst DC branding usually has at least one person saying, give me all of that. No one feels like they have to get all of Year of the Villain. Like, no one even seems to understand exactly what it is. In so much as it's like, I guess villains are fighting heroes, which, bold choice for comic book superhero storytelling. Never seen that before. Hopefully people will understand what you're doing with it. But yeah, just, I don't understand why DC's publishers cannot seem to reliably, consistently do anything with some of the most famous superhero brands of the last almost 100 years. Why? Why is it so hard to get people to buy Superman comics and Batman comics? And I mean, I shouldn't say the Batman comics, because that, when they have the special projects, which I've said before is DC's whole strength, is the special projects. Doomsday Clock comes out, we sell a bunch. Batman Last Night on Earth comes out, we sell out. Detective Comics comes out, no one cares. Batman and the Outsiders comes out, we have no one down in club for it. No one is subscribing to that book.
Yeah, we're at maybe 2 copies now.
I think we're at 4.
We're at 4, but coming up we're at 2.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't.
And that is a book that they held back because it wasn't up to their quality standards, and they retooled it and relaunched it.
This is the better one that's designed to sell better. Yeah, I don't understand. Even setting aside like my qualms with the publishing side of that company and how they're making decisions and how they're putting creative teams on books and how they're shaping events and whatever. I don't understand why people in general seem like they are more loyal to Marvel as a brand than they are to DC as a brand, especially for comics, because it seems so shifting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially because Marvel will upcharge you at the drop of a hat and have poor paper quality.
Yeah,
and
to
will
me,
just put out anything.
Yeah, it's not like Marvel is making peerless, unimpeachable comic books. There's a ton of garbage that comes out every week from Marvel, and if there's more good books coming out from Marvel than DC, a lot of it's just down to Marvel publishes more books than DC. Maybe it would feel differently if DC was publishing a few more hits, and then you'd be able to ignore their junk a lot more. But
we've talked
Marvel,
about
you can ignore their junk because there's enough. There's a half dozen good books coming out every single week from Marvel that you can ignore the 20 that suck.
But we've talked about how DC did try with heavy hitters on their core 7. Kelly Sue on Aquaman, Grant Morrison on Green Lantern, Peter Tomasi, who I think is a great Batman writer, on Detective, G. Willow Wilson on Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
those are all big names and things that I was excited for.
And just me as a reader, that's all stuff where it's like, man, if you put that on a piece of paper and gave it to me 2 years ago, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, DC must be killing it.
Yeah.
But I don't read Aquaman anymore.
No.
I tried the first issue, I'm just like, this isn't for me. All this water god stuff, I don't like Undersea Kingdoms to begin with, so if you're doing a whole thing about, like, all the water gods from all over the world, like, it's very difficult for me to care about that, and I just didn't. It's a very, like, Neil Gaiman way of doing superheroes, and, like, boy, that's not what Neil Gaiman does well at all. It's just a really bad fit for a superhero universe, to me anyway. Maybe if I'd stuck with it, I'd feel differently. The Green Lantern stuff by Grant Morrison, I was a big fan of it in the start because I'm like, oh, this is 2000 AD, but now it's getting into more like mega arc stuff, and I just don't care about a lot of it. I can't understand what he's doing, and I don't care to learn.
It's probably, of the major DC superhero books, it's probably our bestseller after Batman.
It's definitely doing substantially better than it was in the previous iterations.
But it's not doing as well as it was when the first 5 or 6 issues came out.
It's down.
It's down into the 30s now for us.
Flash is a book that I think for a while was our number 2 after Batman. That's a book I don't read. I wasn't enjoying it. Justice League I ended up having to quit on, like everybody else seemed like they quit on it.
I feel like a lot of people are jumping off of Flash now, but the quality of Flash has stayed consistent. It's a solid superhero book. I enjoy reading it. I don't get why people are jumping off now. Maybe it's just too many of them.
Maybe.
But, I mean, the fact that you've had, like Tom King, the fact that Josh Williamson has been on this book for 78 issues in a row.
Since issue 1.
Yeah, is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But maybe the stories will carry more weight for people when they shift back to monthly.
Yeah, for me in DC superhero comics, I'm trying to think of what I read. I read Tom King's Batman, and I'm just talking about ongoing series now. I'm not going to talk about special events.
Superman in Action.
I read Superman in Action. I do like those.
Yeah.
I read Green Lantern, even though I'm not really enjoying it so much anymore. That might be it.
For me, I read Flash. I read Detective. These are the ones on top of what you do.
I gave up Detective. And I like that. I like Peter Tomasi a lot, but basically the Kyle Hotz Spectre one was just... I don't like that art. And
they've been jumping
like,
art.
no.
Christian Dolce from Flash was doing the last couple Detectives.
Yeah, I saw that, and it made me not want to pick it up.
And it was not basically the crashed airplane. Man, you have this great Bruce Wayne versus Deadshot face-off on an airplane, and it gets hit by lightning. And crashes.
Yep, that's what happens to airplanes. They're constantly being hit by lightning and crashing.
It's
epidemic.
I think Detective has such potential, and it's only okay now. If you reverse, I said this last week too. If you reversed the creative teams, and Tom King and Clayman were doing Detective, and Christian Dolce and I don't know if that's how you say his name or not, and Peter Tomasi were doing Batman, Batman would still sell so much better.
Yeah, it's. In general, I think fans always know that there's a primary book and a secondary book and a tertiary book, and they buy them in that way. One of the reasons I think why...
But it's based off title, not story.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's a quality thing so much as this is Batman, and I buy Batman. If I've got extra money or I want more Batman, maybe I buy Detective or Batman Universe. You'd said it before. Batman Universe would be selling substantially more if it were inside Batman.
Yeah.
It's Batman Universe, ergo it's... at best, the third most important Batman book.
Unnecessary.
Superman Up and Away is, at best, the third most important Superman book. If Tom King had taken over Superman, even for 6 issues, it would be selling way better. It's not. It's less important after Action Comics, which is the second most important Superman comic. It was killing us as readers when Action Comics Steve Epting was drawing it. And it's like, holy crap, this is so great, and people are dropping it. Yeah, because they've only got room for so much Superman in their life, and they're already buying Superman.
Superman and Action, though, are both still really good books. And
I think so, too.
That Legion of Superhero books didn't do DC any favors. The Millennium.
No.
It was good. I liked it.
It's not about the Legion of Superheroes.
It's not about Legion of Superheroes.
That's a huge problem. It's asking people to buy 2 oversized issues before you even get to the Legion. Do not understand why you do that, especially because the whole thing of like, oh, Bendis is finally going to put all the DC futures into order. Like, who cares? How is it going to be relevant to anyone down the line? Like, either people like adhere to this version of Commandy, which Scott Snyder and James Tynion already are not in Justice League, and had to do a thing where it's like, yeah, this is a different thing. It's going to have a different commandy because we kind of, like, no one coordinated this. But also, the Legion book isn't going to care about what happened 700 years before the Legion book. And no other book is going to care what happens 300 years in the future. Like,
yeah.
It's doing 2 whole stories that are all prologue to a thing that you don't already have an investment in, probably. I don't understand it. It's weird publishing, and DC does this kind of stuff all the time, where they put the worst foot forward for so many things that are a layup, a tip-in. And they're just like, no, we're going to do this like $8 thing, $9 thing, $10 thing first, before you get to the thing that you're excited about. Like, Jesus, how about you put up more barriers in front of people? How about you make it more difficult to get people excited about your concepts and properties?
And now, not only do you have to get a new flagship Batman writer, you have to get a new Wonder Woman writer.
Yeah, G. Willow Wilson got some sort of sweet deal that she's very excited about, and I wonder if some of it was not having to write Wonder Woman at DC.
What was this sweet deal?
I don't remember hearing about it. She announced it as I can't talk about this yet, but this is why I'm leaving Wonder Woman. This dream project came up.
Oh, so she didn't say with what publisher or...
Maybe she has since then. I haven't really been paying attention.
Gotcha.
It might not even be a comic book thing. It might be something else entirely.
So in 2019, or I guess 2020, I'm not sure how long she's going to be on, do you have to have a woman writer on Wonder Woman?
Well, you don't next, because it's Steve Orlando.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, maybe eventually, but apparently not in the short term.
For how long is it Steve Orlando?
I have no idea.
He's already done his Wonder Woman stuff.
If he got ACO back, I'd probably want to read it again. But I don't think he is.
Isn't he doing half of the DC Giants?
I'm sure he's doing some of them.
He's doing some of them, yeah. He is.
Yeah, when G. Willow Wilson was announcing it, I think she also said, like, Steve Orlando's taking over, and it's going to be great.
Okay. I did not know that part.
Yeah.
Well, that answers my question.
Uh-huh. I don't think...
I really hate that DC has to, and I know that there's no way around it, but I hate that they have to get fill-in writers to do things, like James Robinson to do an arc on Detective before they brought Peter Tomasi back kind of thing. I wish they could just go from big-name arc to big-name arc and not have to plug in, the Brian Hill Black Lightning story and then the Two-Face story.
Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo were going to do the short story after Hush.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we don't have another team to go yet. And boy, did it turn a ton of people off because it was the opposite of what Jim Lee was doing art-wise. Yeah. And so, I mean, even going back that far, what is the anniversary for Hush that came out this week? Like 15 years or something?
Yeah.
Even 15 years ago, DC was doing stuff where it's like, oh, this is a good story that absolutely should not follow this other one. You're going to lose a ton of sales. That's going to be very hard for you to get back when the other creative team that is more a natural fit comes on. But instead, you're doing this. Like, why not make the Brian Azzarello Eduardo Rizzo thing a separate miniseries where you can pitch it as such? And then have a superhero creative team come on to do a superhero story after the big widescreen Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Sandra Hope superhero story. It's not even armchair quarterbacking because it's completely evident, I think, to everyone. So the idea of, like, why would you do that? Why would you make it more difficult for yourself? And that company is constantly making it more difficult for itself.
This week they had a new printing of Hush, the 50th anniversary trade paperback, and a dollar edition of Batman 608, the first chapter.
Yeah.
And both of them have the same cover, but a new cover. Do you think it's necessary to update covers?
No, and DC does it so often, I don't understand the point of it. Like, sometimes they'll do it just to update the logo of the company, and it's like, just let your books sell out. Then do it. So many times now, like, they did new anniversary covers for the Sandman graphic novels.
Yeah.
And they did them slowly over time. Where if they would have done them all at once, we would have been like, all right, well, we're just going to start replacing these as our copies sell out. But I don't want to replace them when I still have old versions of other ones.
Yeah.
But there's only like 2 or 3 volumes of the 10 volumes of Sandman that you can only get in the new covers. The rest of them, the old covers are still at the warehouse.
They're much better about that now. They've noticed when material's still in print and they've canceled editions that they've solicited for.
No, because they just did a new printing of Watchmen when the old printing of Watchmen is still in print. there's just a little slug on the cover that says, like, now an HBO series. But the one that doesn't say now an HBO series, I just restocked this week.
They should send us stickers for this. No, they shouldn't.
Yeah, it's just dumb stuff like that. Yeah.
Apparently, they changed the cover to Killing Joke without telling retailers. Apparently, it came out this week as well. We didn't order it because, again, we're fine with it, and we still have a bunch in the back because of a botched consignment order kind of thing.
Batman Day coming up September 21st.
That's right. This weekend? No, next weekend.
We don't Killing Joke. We don't have in the back.
Okay, but anyway, the point is there's apparently a new cover which we've not seen, but retailers got it this week and do not like, and we can't find it anywhere because when you look it up on Diamond site, it shows the old cover because DC didn't tell anybody they're changing the cover.
No.
Very curious to see what that one is like.
DC as a company is so strange in the ways that they do things that just reflexively piss off retailers. I would not be surprised if they announced that Doomsday Clock number 12, individual copies will be shipping to stores inside jars of scorpions. Like, that would be a thing where I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty much in keeping with how they do things.
You mean the way they send books to Tom Taylor?
Sure.
You remember that story of him getting...
I do. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't their fault. Speaking of Tom Taylor, he is taking over Suicide Squad.
He is, yes. Suicide Squad coming back to comic shops in December, I believe.
I'm actually excited for that, and I did not read any of the last several Suicide Squad iterations.
Yeah, Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, who were collectively the creative team for a lot of the Injustice comics that came out.
Injustice!
That's good. It's Australian, too.
That's why I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with it. I know he's going to be introducing a lot of new characters to the team, specifically to probably get people killed off, although he promises that even big-name DC supervillains will not be safe on the team. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think Tom Taylor is a drastically underrated meat-and-potato-style superhero writer. He's able to do good stories on literally any project he's landed on, even stuff that I haven't particularly been interested in. He's
like Superior Iron Man. You never liked that one.
Did he do Superior Iron Man?
Yeah, that was all his. He wrote the whole series.
Oh, okay.
The silver suit?
I thought that was somebody else.
Nope, it was Tom Taylor.
It was the art that bugged me on that more than the writing.
Yield Racing art?
Yeah, not a fan.
Your favorite Legion artist?
Boof. But yeah, the DC series that he's been doing has been wildly successful at DC and honestly at Challengers as well. So hopefully we'll be able to take a lot of people who are reading Deceased and finishing that up in November and say, hey, he's doing this other book where a bunch of DC people get killed.
Yeah, there's
Check this out.
Plenty of death in the air.
All getting murdered here too. Yeah, I think that's in light of DC's normal fumbling of how to move readers from book to book, it sounds like a pretty good time to be launching a new Tom Taylor violent DC superhero comic book. Hopefully that'll work out for them.
You know what I think is a bad idea launching a new comic?
What's that?
When you have the same writer on the same character, and you end your book at 20, and then next month you have a number 1.
Literally the next month.
And it's still Mark Waid writing Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange, Surgeon Supreme will be launching the month after, probably just a few weeks after, Doctor Strange ends.
There have been a few people who subscribe to Doctor Strange with us who want to drop it but are just waiting. Well, I know it ends at 20. They're going to be in for Rude Awakening because we're probably going to copy orders over because it's the same writer and the same character.
We definitely are, yes. Everybody who's down for the current Doctor Strange Mark Waid series, we are automatically going to sign you up for the next Doctor Strange Mark Waid series.
I hate that so much. It can be 21.
Yeah, especially because it's
a re-emphasis of him being a surgeon, Dal. It's different.
On the one hand, nearly any time you do a number 1, the sales are going to go up a little bit. Someone somewhere is going to try a number 1 because it's a number 1 instead of a number 21. We complain so hard about Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman not being renumbered at number 1. I think it drastically decreased the number of copies they could have sold. And I don't, to this day, understand why a huge shift in the character with a brand new start, with a brand new artist and a brand new writer,
and a whole brand new concept, really.
Launching around the time the movie was coming out did not deserve a number 1. That is baffling to me. The only reason I would accept at this point is if Dan DiDio and Jim Lee were being held at gunpoint and they were not allowed by the gunman to change it to a number 1. At that point, even then I'd say, one of you could take the bullet. Come on.
Because they gave Green Lantern a number 1 and it was as
drastic a change.
Yeah, as drastic of a change. I was going to say as new of a concept.
Yeah. So, yeah, with this, I can sort of understand the idea of if there's ever a shift, give it a number 1. And I don't think it's a bad idea to constantly be renumbering superhero comics because people are always looking for number ones to jump onto. I've seen it so many times. It's ridiculous. I wish the industry didn't work that way, but you got your head in the sand if you don't think it does. So responding to that with new number ones, I sort of understand. But at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, you have not changed nearly enough to make me think that casual fans who have been avoiding the last 20 issues of Doctor Strange are going to look at this one and go, that's what it was missing.
Now I want it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you'll get some curiosity, folks, but that's never sustainable, and that's part of the problem with this, is that you're not making a big enough change that's going to lock people in. You're giving people a number one to buy, and that's great. We'll do well with it for a month. It's going to go up 5 or 10 copies or something, whatever. Well,
don't worry. Marvel will offer us a deep discount if we order 300% of Doctor Strange 20.
I don't actually think they will, because they seem like they've completely stopped doing this.
I just wanted to make a joke about how ridiculous of a hoop it would be to jump through. Anyway.
Maybe that's why they stopped doing it. They got tired of people making jokes about, like, you want us to order a number of copies that are mostly just going to go in the garbage. Please don't make us do that, or ask us to do that, because no one's making us do anything. Yeah, I do not understand why this is a number one beyond just the shrug of, like, we'll make an extra... Each store is going to make an additional $8 that month. Like, all right, it's better than making it $8 less.
Sure.
So, okay. But
it'll be a $5.99 number one, I'm sure.
For that book, I don't think so.
Okay, $4.99.
I don't even think that.
I bet you it'll be $4.99 minimum.
I don't think it will be, but I don't want to bet on it.
You have to grow a mustache. Oh, okay.
Do not want to bet on it.
That's fine. You don't have to. We'll both forget by then anyway. Because they'll have announced the next Doctor Strange series we'll be looking ahead to.
There was a customer who was in who I hadn't seen
Doctor
before.
Strange, Sorcerer General.
Ooh. That actually sounds pretty good. There was a customer who'd been in that I hadn't seen before and needed buying a bunch of stuff, but one of the questions he had was basically if he wanted to get all of the Doctor Strange comics, because he actually has been collecting comics for a long time and he listed some stuff where I'm like, Jesus, those are expensive books. Where can he find a list of the 400 issues of Doctor Strange? Because they just had issue 400 come out. And I'm like, well, I can't help you because Marvel doesn't give us that information. They don't publish it anywhere where it's like, here's the list of how we got to 400 for Doctor Strange. And it's not even like the ongoing series, because they could just as easily shovel in this 6-issue Strange miniseries, because that was the Doctor Strange comic that was coming out for 6 months.
Yeah.
So it counts. So like the best you can do is maybe a fan online cobble together what they think the numbers are to get to 400, but even then, a lot of the numbers are not arbitrary, but it's ballparked. Like, they don't care that much.
One of my favorite concepts was from that Strange miniseries where his cape became a trench coat.
Sure.
And it just made perfect sense to me. And it had, it still had that stripe of squigglies on the red.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was on the inside or not.
But you could actually wear it around.
Yeah, it was more a street-level Doctor Strange. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Was that Mark Buckingham doing that art?
You might be right.
Along with somebody else I can't remember. Good times, like Batman Day is going to be.
I hope so.
On Saturday, September 21st.
That sounds
with
fun.
Stephanie Meyded, with Luke Smarto, with temporary tattoos, which I don't know that we'll be actually applying so much. I mean, we normally have face painting, but our face painter is in the Philippines at the moment. And so we have a bunch of these temporary tattoos. But I don't know if we want to, get wet sponges and put them on kids' faces, or...
maybe we can have, a little spray bottle of water.
Yeah, it's just that we also would have a dedicated employee for that. We don't have extra staff this week.
Sure. Well, it would mostly just be here's a spray bottle, I will spray your wrist real quick. There you go, done.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll see.
Well...
I might not even do that.
Yeah, too bad the flyers say face painting, so you have to put the tattoos on their faces.
Okay. And spray them in the face with water.
That's fair.
I'll get the hose. Close your eyes real tight.
And your choice of free Batman comic from DC, specially branded for that day.
Yep.
And that is a thing. And then we'll spare the list of events. That's just the next one.
Yep.
We'll do that one.
Yep, that's the one coming up.
Also, don't you have a new one to announce for the end of the month?
End of September?
Yeah.
It's not up on the website yet, but we're going to be doing an organized plaything for the Transformers trading card game. Specifically, we're going to be doing the Energon Invitational Qualifier, where the winner is going to get an invitation to compete in the Energon Invitational at PAX Unplugged later this year.
Not the winner from the Challenger store.
The winner from the Challenger store is going to get an invitation. Yeah, that's the Energon Invitational
Oh, I see.
qualifier.
Okay.
Is that
I thought there was... Okay.
stores that run it,
Wow.
the winner gets an invitation to go compete at the big money tournament. And
Wow.
obviously, what you're winning is the invitation.
Right. You still have to pay to get out there.
Yep, and tickets and all that sort of stuff, I think. I don't think you're getting passes, but I could be wrong on that. Maybe you're
Okay,
getting...
so hypothetically, you win.
I would probably just defer. I would not accept
Okay.
winning. September 25th is the Transformers trading card game Energon Invitational, which
That is
somehow...
a Wednesday.
How is that already in my calendar? I don't remember... How did that get in there?
I will tell you how I got in there.
Is it on the website?
No, it's not on the website, but you filled out a form and got an email confirmation.
Oh, yeah, okay. This event was created from an email you received in Gmail. I'll be goddamned. Thank you, iPhone and...
Gmail?
Well, Apple Calendar, basically. Thank you for scanning all of my emails. But that's going to be...
You know how often I get a notice about a dental appointment you have?
Oh, crazy. September 25th, that is a Wednesday, 7 o'clock after the store closes for the day, we'll be setting up and getting people in the system. To participate, it is a free event, although you do need to be registered with Wizards' DCI system. It's free to sign up. Go to wizards.com. You can get a DCI number if you don't have one already.
What does that stand for?
I believe it originally stood for Duelist Convocation International, and it was basically the Magic registration system, but now it encompasses all of the various things that Wizards of the Coast tracks through their various tournaments. So a DCI number is necessary to participate in the Transformers trading card game Energon Invitational Qualifier at Challengers Comics and Conversation on Wednesday, September 25th. Registration in the store will be happening around 7 o'clock, with gameplay to take place shortly after. I don't know how many rounds we're doing, because I've honestly never run something like this before. So hopefully we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time, but plan on 3+ hours probably, so it might be a late Wednesday night, unfortunately. We will try and get people out at a reasonable hour. Since this is a sanctioned DCI event, it is adhering to the official tournament rules for Transformers trading card game. That includes things like time limits and sideboards and things like that. So if you haven't already, you do want to participate and you do play the game, go to transformerstcg.com. You should be able to find the tournament rules. If not listed on there, then linked to somewhere where you can read them. We are going to be adhering to those rules, so learn them. Otherwise, show up, play some games. It's free to play, and someone will get a chance to represent Challengers Comics and Conversation at the Energon Invitational at PAX Unplugged.
And that is in...
Philly, I think?
Okay. Oh, so you can easily drive there. Cool. Mm-hmm. Nice.
So that's the thing.
Well, I hope that is a lot of fun. Just like I hope this was a lot of fun. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.